So many shows, so little time. I don't know why everything decides to air on Wednesday and Thursdays. But here we are. It's time to get back to Snowfall. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. The final season of Snowfall has arrived. First two episodes. I'm going to do the first one, and then I'll do a separate video for the second. Um, Look, I think we can all agree that the last season of Snowfall was a bit of a mixed bag. It left a little bit to be desired. We can say the term that's used the most is called jumping the shark, nuke the fridge if you're an Indiana Jones fan. I say for this one, tiger roaming the streets. It felt like a lot of the things that made Snowfall what it was sort of went away a little bit. But the one thing that remained is that the characters and the DNA of those characters still remain the same. So a lot of people were still holding out hope that, hey, maybe if they realize that they're coming to a conclusion, they will sort of pick things up and get back to the basics of where they began with the first few seasons of Snowfall. This first episode leads me to believe that they are on the right path to creating something that is going to be quite memorable when it is all said and done. First episode is called The Fallout. And just like it states, it's a fallout from all the stuff that Franklin and some other folks had sort of put into play at the end of the last episode. As we remember, to catch everybody up, basically Franklin has waged war against his uncle and aunt. He has pulled a gun on Louis. He has robbed their stash houses to sort of collect money because he has not been made whole. He has lost 73 million. It has been seized. He doesn't know where it's at. He knows Teddy has it, and he knows that Teddy and Louis now have a bond or a working agreement. So he's waged his war on his blood, his uncle and aunt, to get himself back onto good footing. And thus, we're now sort of seeing the ramifications of all of that. So this episode begins straight up with the fallout. Now, mind you, something that has sort of been underlying in all of these Snowfall episodes this entire season is the wage on drug war that is looming from the Reagan era administration. So we do open up with Nancy Reagan kind of doing her state on drugs speech. It's just making sure that you still understand the timeline, what year we're in, and kind of where the world is on just cracking down on this drug epidemic. And then we see the fallout of a young lady, young girl, who's sitting on her stoop, just looking sad. The mailman comes up to her and is like, "Hey, what's going on?" She's like, my daddy didn't come home. So what we find out is that she is the daughter of one of the two people that Franklin and his crew killed at one of Jerome and Louis' stash houses. Her name is Tisha because we see the bracelet that kind of is existing there. But it's just showing you, while yes, this is a war that Franklin is sort of waging with his uncle and aunt, it does have reverberations outside of that. Other people are affected by that. Gustavo Uso is just able to come on home, so we all know that yeah, he's been flipped. He's an informant. We last saw him in the last episode, finale, that he got hemmed up by the DEA, and so now he is working for them to try to bring down Teddy. That is what his goal is. He doesn't quite let it be known then, so he tries to bring his wife, his girl, to a separate location, to a bowling alley, which is a little louder, so that their house is bugged. He's probably bugged, just so that he can tell her what's going on without ears listening. And she's kind of just like, "Are we okay with this?" I'm like, "Well, we got to be. I mean, really ain't no choice. This is what it is." And Gustavo does a pretty good. He's keeping this too close to the vest. He's not telling anybody outside of his girl. He's keeping it in house. So even when he has a meet later with Teddy, that he's just kind of keeping all of this in house because that's obviously who they want. Where he does sort of mess up is that he gives Teddy asks, because Teddy's smart. He asks like, "Hey, you said your kid was sick. That's why I couldn't locate you, or why you didn't make a certain meet." He's like, "Yeah, my kid was sick. It's at the hospital." He asks him what hospital. He gives him a hospital name. So now he has put sort of a trace point where Teddy, doing his homework, is going to eventually look up that hospital just to make sure that, hey, is he lying to me, or is this kid actually sick there? Franklin has a new stash house. Looks state of the art. Got a key code. He's got all the bricks that he's stolen from Jerome and Louis all up in there. And he's taking V to show her where everything is at. V is not about this at all. She is not feeling anything that Franklin has done to get to this point. She's like, we had other options. We could have sold things here. We could have done this. You said you were getting out. You said we were done with this and we were moving to doing other things. Why are we here? How are we? You need to fix this with Jerome and Louis. Like, we need to have a sit down. He's like, nah. You're either in or out. This is where we're at now. Made a decision. I need you to go ahead and contact some of the people that your dad used to work with, or your dad. We need to start laundering this money through Florida. It's like, I don't want any parts of this. Get me out of here. I don't want to be here. So there's a issue that Franklin always goes by impulse, and it gets him in trouble. He always goes by impulse and never actually thinks things through, or never asks the people that he actually cares about or loves to kind of bounce ideas off or things about to sort of maybe de-escalate the situation. He's always, nope, we're doing this way, we're doing this way, we're doing this way. And that is sort of leading him down the path that we are currently in. Franklin meets with his dad's old Black Panther contact or partner, and is sort of looking for a few people. He still believes that Peaches is the one that dimed him out and gave up everything and gave up all the stash houses. So he's like, I got $250,000 on Peaches' head. Find him and bring him to me. But then he also wants to know, hey, I had you previously looking into Teddy. I need you to do that again. Where's his mom? Where's his wife with this kid? I need you to give me something that gives me some pressure points on Teddy. He's trying to do everything possible to like have the one up on Teddy so that he can kind of figure out where his money is. Mind you, the last time he did this, his father ended up missing. So I don't know if there's a road that he really wants to go down. But he, again, is head first. He's like a bull in a china shop right now. He knows one mission: get my money back. Someone stole from me. I'm stealing from everybody else until I am made whole. To catch you up on Carissa, who was Teddy's new flame, she is still missing at the hands of Ruben, who also killed Avi. So Teddy is going to go try to re-up with some of Avi's contacts to say, hey, I need help. I need to find Carissa. I need your assistance. And they are like, nah, get up out of here. We don't want no parts of this. They pull a gun on him, try to like put some fear in him. And Teddy's not on top of his game here because the person that he cares about is missing. So he is a little bit more of a at the mercy of these folks, which does lead a little bit to Franklin's idea of saying, hey, if I can get to those pressure points, maybe I can sort of have Teddy by the balls. I think Teddy always succeeds or is better when he is in control, when he is the power play. When he is not, you can see that there's a bit of a weakness there. Jerome is trying to page Franklin. He's been doing it this entire episode. Jerome and Louis both realize that Franklin is the one who hit their stash houses and all that. And Jerome's kind of just like, let me talk to the boy. And Louis is pretty much like, he's into man stuff now. This stops being about talking to a boy. We need to handle this business. I will say this about all of this. As we go along, we'll start seeing that Louis is more and more the lit match on Jerome's gasoline. He's gassing him up consistently. And I think there are some things that could be de-escalated if Louis didn't always put some flame to the gas. But even still, Franklin's not making this better. Franklin is going around to all the connects that Jerome has and trying to seal and steal those to put them back into his favor. So he's meeting up with D, the corner boy, who actually has more of a connection with Jerome because he's a street dude. More of a connection with Jerome, where Franklin gives him a deal that he can't kind of refuse, basically undercutting the price that he is giving, that Jerome was giving him. He's trying to do it for less. But he's just trying to shore up all the things that he's had. Talking about at the hospital with Kane, like he's doing everything possible to sort of lock this stuff up so that he is now back in the power play, because it has been believed that because Lee left and is off to Africa with his girl, that Franklin was out too. Franklin's just trying to reestablish his brand on this turf. Jerome eventually does meet up with D again, and D tells him what's going on. Jerome lets him know, like, yo, all this stuff is stolen from me. That's how he got all of this. And he's like, I don't want no parts of that. Like I told Franklin, I don't want any parts of the blood or whatever's going on between you. I'm just doing what's best for business. So y'all figure that out. You let me know what we can do. And if we're getting a new deal, let's work on it. But I'd much rather do business with you. So let me know what we're doing. And that's sort of what Franklin, I don't think, yes, why you undercut and took the money and knowing that Jerome can't probably match that with the money, you didn't take into account that there's a just a street tie that they have, even if it's close or almost the same, he's going to go with Jerome pretty much 90% of the time. So Louis meets back up with Teddy and he wants to re-up. Like she has no product, money or product. So she needs him to sort of reinvest, if you will, back into her to sort of get things back going again. Teddy's like, okay, but what happened to everything? Now, I don't quite, this is where I'm a little confused. I don't quite know how Teddy still has assets. I guess he still thinks that he has the tunnel at this point, but he seems readily willing to be like, yeah, no, I got you. I can re-up. Now it does take a little bit of coercing because Louis has to inform him that, like, yeah, Franklin is waged war on me. He's robbed me. He's taken all of this because somebody jammed up and took his money, his 73 million. So he's now taking that from us. And Teddy doesn't let on that he's the one who stole it, but he does kind of look confused and like he did not expect the smart gamesmanship that Franklin has often shown. He didn't expect him to then turn around and attack his family. He just didn't think that was going to be the case. He thought he might ride off into the sunset because it seemed like that's kind of where his head was going when he last spoke to him. Like, oh, moving on, wife's pregnant, you kind of are moving on with your life. And this sort of is a different trajectory. He's like, whoa, yeah. And then we get our first, it's not a face to face. We get that the next episode. We get our first phone conversation with Jerome and Franklin. Franklin, V finally does sort of acquiesce because it's for her family. She does decide to do what Franklin wants and heads to Miami to help launder the money. They're trying to keep it in the States because it's a little easier to get access to the money if it's still in the States, but Miami's far enough and different enough that no one outside the two of them is going to have contact or access to that money. So she's getting on a plane to go there. After she heads out, Franklin finally responds to Jerome's pages, and they have a pretty contentious conversation. What essentially comes out of it is Franklin like, "Hey, look, business is business." But what's funny to me is that when you guys steal from me, it's called business. Like you took Teddy, you took my connect. That's business. But when I steal back, when I take it back, it's personal. I I don't get it. And he says my eyes were open when I came into this, and my eyes are still open. And pleasantries are displayed, and they hang up on each other. And then Jerome sort of sits down and is like, "Man, this is messed up." This at this point where some of the Louis lighting a match, being the match and lighting on gasoline, because Louis, she ain't shit at this point. She knows what this is going to do, and it's like giving a person who's not Jerome's not altogether there. He can be very much of a hothead. She put a battery in his back, and she says like, "Hey, I didn't tell you this before, but Franklin put a gun on me," and that, I mean, the writing's on the wall at this point. Become something different when when that news was given. After meeting with his contact to try to get back in to the CIA, Teddy does get a phone call to find out the whereabouts of Carissa. She's got a bandage on her head. She's in lockup, but she's perfectly fine. Ruben did not kill her. Speaking of Ruben, Sissy and Ruben have a meet, and Ruben kind of just like, now's the time. I need to meet Franklin. We need to get Teddy off the board. He's going to start moving faster now that he knows that the walls are sort of closing in. And Avi's off the table, so we need to move now rather than later. So I need you to set this meet up. So Sissy brings it all up to Franklin. And Franklin, for a moment, is a bit hesitant to burn it all down. He's like, I don't know if that is. And Sissy kind of lights a fire under him. He's like, hey, look, there's a reason why Teddy did not kill me, or even you. He figures that we are inconsequential. There are nothing that we can bring that is peril to him that is going to bring down his empire, bring him down. Your father was, so that's why she had to remove him. I want to make it seem like I'm not the good house inward that is just waiting by the front door, waiting on him to come, mama to come home. I'm going to bring the fight to him, and I'm going to let him know that I'm not inconsequential, that you do need to worry about me, and that I want to be there to see it all burn for him. So that is why she is so gung-ho to try to bring this down. Sissy gives a fantastic monologue to this that does sort of galvanize Franklin. Is like, all right, cool, let's do it. Because of the hospital info that Uso gave Teddy, he then realized like he needs to clean that up and back it up. So he goes to his handlers who have their whole little setup at a hotel, kind of knocks in uninvited, sees sort of the operation, but lets them know like, hey, I gave a hospital name to sort of keep him off the trails. Can you guys do anything about it? Like, it's going to take some time, but yeah, we can fix that, but you need to give us a bit of a heads up. He also just says you need to. There's going to be a lot of these type of moments, but you can't keep coming here busting up our spot. We don't know who's watching you. You need to be a little bit smarter about how we do all of this. And Uso understands, but at that point, he's like, my family comes first. I need you to just make sure that they're okay. I don't care about anything else. Teddy's not the I've seen the bad side of Teddy. So I just want to make sure that we are on the same page and that nothing bad's going to happen to my family. Jerome and Louis still have Buck under their thumb. The former police officer, he's now off the force, which makes him a little bit more dangerous. But the sauce-taking drug dealer or drug-taking cop is still on their payroll, and they have a meeting, and they kind of just like, hey, do you still have officers that you consider to be friends? Now, mind you, because of the shootings, because of the war on drugs, the police, they don't have as many people in the police as they used to. But Buck still has a couple of people that he can rely on. So Franklin's his two drivers, Dallas and Diamond, go to do the drop with D. Now, mind you, this is important just overall. When they first get to the meet, because Franklin's not telling them where the stash house is. So they're meeting at a separate location to exchange to get the drugs so that they can go do the switch. But when they first arrive, they have their kids in the backseat of the car. Franklin meets them and it's a cordial meeting. He's like, hey, how's it going? And then he's just like, you're not taking the kids to the meet, right? He's like, of course not. I'm going to give them extra sketches to sit them in the back. But they're like, no, we're going to drop them off first, but they still have to do money things. But it's important that the kids saw Franklin. It's all going to come together. They go to the meet. Everything seems cordial. D is being a little sexual to Diamond. To Diamond, but nothing comes of it. They seem safe. They pull off once the exchange happens. They have the money in the back and they pull off. Then all of a sudden they get pulled over by the police. And the police have them a gun. Now they're both pretty smart. They're like, look, they can't search the car, and even if they do, we'll get out of it. Franklin has people, lawyers. We'll get out of it. They get out the car, and then before they get out the car, Buck shows himself. And Dallas is like, you're not even a cop no more. And he's like, does that make me more or less dangerous? Which he's not wrong, because they don't really have a choice. While Buck's not with the police, those two are actual officers, so they kind of have to just deal with what it is. So they get out the car, and then Jerome shows. Jerome feels different right now. It's a cool shot of him getting out the car with how cold it is, the wind. You can tell, though, that he is angry. He's not the same person that he normally is, when he's sometimes jovial and having a good time. This man didn't want to be a part of this business. He's a man who kind of just wanted to play music and do his thing. But his nephew has put a gun on the woman that he loves and has kind of turned on him and is taken stolen from him. So he goes up to Diamond. He's kind of like, where's the money? Like, where's my stuff at? And mind you, they don't know where the stash house is. Franklin purposely has not told them. And they're like, we don't know. And then he smacks the living shit out of Diamond. She falls to the ground, and then he gets on top of her and convinces to smashing her head in even more. He just keeps hitting her. Dallas is like, we do not know where they're at. And Diamond is unconscious, like bloody, head swollen, probably not alive. And then Jerome once tells Dallas, like, tell Franklin that I did this. And then he walks off, and we go to black. Wow, that's a way to start. Again, a lot of this, Franklin was doing his best to duck Jerome this entire episode. And I think that was, from what happened in the last episode when he pulled the gun on Louis, we knew that this was going to come back and bite him in the ass. The second he found out, he's going to be like a dog on a bone. There is still some familial ties, so there's some still care, but it's not enough when it comes to you both stealing from me, disrespecting me, and putting a gun to my wife's head. That you've sort of created this windstorm that he's gonna have to deal with. I think this does a good job of episode title being apropos, the fallout, everyone sort of getting the ramifications of kind of what happened before. Uso's now paranoid of Teddy, but under the thumb of the DEA. Ruben and Sissy still have this relationship going that she's now trying to fold Franklin into, and he seems okay with it. Franklin and V, not on the best terms, but she is still doing what's best for her family and her unborn kid. And we're now sort of seeing how they all play together. I don't think this is going to go well, although I already know, but I don't think this is going to go well for Diamond. But a good start off episode. Doesn't fix all that ailed episode 5, but I think this one was a lot of like putting the places in peace so that we can kind of run off to what we're going to do for the rest of the season. I think the underlying tone of the war on drugs is starting to close in on them, and I don't know how much more. In addition to Franklin trying to get his business back going, to what end and to how much? Like that 73 million was over the course of a time when it was easier to move all of this stuff. Now that things are a little bit tighter, you're not going to get back to that number. So you have a goal in mind that's going to be like, hey, I'm okay if I stop here and ride off into the sunset. For him, I think it's now just out of principle. Someone stole all that I've worked for to get, as opposed to saying, hey, 73 million, I would love to live lavish. But if I had 7 or 10 million, would I be comfortable enough to ride off into the sunset and deal with my family? 2 million. Like, what is his number? It's no longer about money. It's now about principle, which I think becomes dangerous because you start thinking with anger and in your ethos as opposed to common sense or rationality. What did you guys think about the first episode of Snowfall season 6, final season, called The Fallout? Leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere the place podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.